have to grow up.
They don't, well, they don't have to delay gratification. They don't have to. They don't have to do that. They can literally live like a child forever. I live in Dubai, and you will be so surprised that you'll see like men in their 50s still hitting the club every weekend. You forget your age in a place like Dubai, because there'll be men that are in their 40s and 50s and they still hit the club every night and they still feel like they're young. Now they're like, and they'll say, but my body's young, I look young, there's no problem. But you're not young. I'm not saying you're old, but you're not. You should be responsible at this age and stage. And they almost see it as like a badge of honor that they're 45 and they're still getting girls and they're still getting, going into the club. And that's something to be embarrassed about, because your self-control should have inhibited that desire for you by now. If you're still that guy that gets all these girls in your mid-40s, that means you don't attract women of quality, because if you did, you would have settled down by now. Or you're just irresponsible and you don't like the responsibility of looking after a woman. Again, that decreases your masculinity. You should enjoy the concept of looking after a woman, rather than just spreading your seed all day, every day. You're not a 5-year-old, you're not a 15-year-old. But that might just be me because I'm such a grandma, and I reward kind of boring men, and I think that that's actually a great life to live in the long run, because it's contentment.
Well, so I want to ask, is that it? The goal is contentment? The
goal is peace over pleasure. That's all.
Why is that better?
Because it's biochemically better. There's different serotonin is released when we're actually at peace, rather than during dopamine releases. So biologically, it's better. It's better for your nervous system. It's better for your hormones. It's better for that. But also, it's better for you psychologically. It's better to just commit to what you have rather than focus on alternatives, because you almost live like a crack addict. Always wish what's going on. The peace that you get where it doesn't matter what's going on. I've decided to commit to this situation, whether it's work, whether it's woman, this, that, and the other. I've decided to commit, and now I'll ward off alternatives. That's how we actually achieve peace in any decision we make. Even when we're deciding a holiday, just pick one and stick to it, and you're more likely to enjoy and appreciate than if you kept looking at alternatives. It's one of the reasons why buffets, people don't enjoy the food so much. There's so many alternatives. The problem is we are inundated, men and women, with alternatives, which makes peace a very distant dream now.
So how do we cultivate peace then in the modern world?
You try and avoid alternatives. Whatever decision you make, you try your best to absolutely avoid alternatives. But when you're picking something or picking a partner or whatever it is, in order to create peace, is instead of focusing on the millions things that you like about the person, just focus on your deal breakers. She might be beautiful, she might be great at sex, she might be all of these things, but if she has one or two of your deal breakers, maybe your deal breaker is loyalty, or maybe your deal breaker is like she doesn't get on with your family, whatever it is. Even if she's got one of those deal breakers, there's no point going to it. You'll get pleasure, but you won't get peace from this relationship. Same thing with women. He might be a million great things. He might be a great father. He might be really intelligent. He might be all of these things. But if he's really distant and cold to you, or if he's, can be a bit abusive, or if he's just not very affectionate to you, and that's a deal breaker to you, your relationship will be filled with chaos. So pick somebody with no deal breakers rather than just all the things that you love about them.
You said earlier that you actually think people should wait to marriage to have sex.
Mm-hmm.
For real in practice?
Well, no, I agree with the concept. I really do agree with the concept. I know it's going to be very difficult. And I have to preface this. I have contradicted myself on this a couple of times, and I'll tell you why. Because I recently said men who do not get women in their youth really struggle with commitment as an adult. And what I mean by that is, if they were a jock in school and got all the girls, you'll find men that were the jocks and really successful in getting all the girls when they're in high school, you'll catch up with them on Facebook. They have very average jobs, have very average wives, they're usually a bit overweight, whatever it is, and they're just coasting along. And whereas the men that didn't get any girls, if they've had a glow up, they're just surrounded by girls all day, every day. And I really think what happens is, at a young age, if you learn the art of getting the girls you want, doesn't mean every girl, but the girls you want, you remove them from their pedestal and you can settle down a bit easier. But when you don't have access to women, when you're in your young age, you will forever be motivated by the desire to have women. So even your work, you'll be like, okay, I can get more girls. Or even when you're working out, I can get more girls. Everything becomes revolves around girls. So those men, they might get married, they might settle down, but they'll crave the women that they couldn't access when they're young, because I feel like that's a formative age of your self-esteem. So I always just say, like, I do understand that. I've said that before. But when I talk about getting girls, I don't mean having sex with girls. I mean the ability to reject women. Some men have only been rejected by women, and they've never said no to a woman, ever, because they've just been the ones that are always getting rejected. But other men have been with women, not been with women, got girls, not got girls. They're like, okay, I can't be bothered with her today anymore. They've learned that skill where you can say no, you can turn it down. Those men, I feel like, tend to be better partners. What do you think?
I don't think that people should wait to have sex. Don't not wait for.
I don't
marriage
think
to
it's
have
realistic
sex.
in this day and age, sadly.
Not even realistic. So I'm giving you what I think is just wise. So if I'm trying to lead you to human flourishing, I think there are a lot of things that go into sexual chemistry, and you're not going to know if you have sexual chemistry until you actually have sex. So I get.
But do you also think that when you don't know if you're going to have it, and then you're just with one person, you don't have it, you're more committed to creating sexual chemistry?
Yes, for sure. And so.
Are you a successful man who has achieved endless heights in his career? Are you somebody who's absolutely made it in his professional life, but his personal life just doesn't seem to match up? Are you somebody who goes through intense highs in business, but intense lows in your personal relationships? You might be somebody who has been blocking out relationships or entering relationships where you don't feel appreciated, or it's lacking the sexual or emotional intimacy that you require. If this sounds like you, then I have a program specifically catered to your needs. I've been helping high-end clients for a really long time, and I am able to identify the exact problems, the exact causes, and the exact solutions. So if this sounds like you, then please feel free to register below your details.
What I think is just wise. So if I'm trying to lead you to human flourishing, I think there are a lot of things that go into sexual chemistry, and you're not going to know if you have sexual chemistry until you actually have sex. So I get.
But do you also think that when you don't know if you're going to have it, and then you're just with one person, you don't have it, you're more committed to creating sexual chemistry?
Yes, for sure. And so going back to you and I both believe that there should be restrictions. I just believe that they should be self-imposed. You believe they should come from God. However people get them, I'm happy as long as they aren't forced upon them from the outside. But when I think about, there is sort of you need to build up desire. So you should be hungry. So if I were single, then I'm not going to be looking at porn, certainly not as we come up towards the weekend if I'm about to try to go out and get laid, because you're going to need that hunger built up before you're willing to take the risk and all of that. I am going to invest in my vision of what a shared future is going to be, why I want a woman, what are the things that are emotionally healthy for me, what does that look like? I'm going to map my values. I'm going to talk about, I've been talking about what I wanted in a wife since I was like 18. So and the thing is that ended up working for me because one, I knew it when I saw it. Because I literally laid out, here are the things that I'm looking for from values, from traits. And when I found it, I was like, oh, wow, like this is, I remember saying I'm either never getting married or I'm marrying this girl. Needless to say how that played out. So I do think all that is important, but I also think that just like it is very fair of people to say that I can't possibly understand what it actually means to have a child because I don't have a child. You can't possibly understand what it means to have sex if you've never had sex. And given how important that's going to be for the rest of your life, not trying it's going to be hard.
Is there a reason why men value it so much more? Like, is it why do you guys why does your life revolve around it so much? I'm so curious.
You mentioned this earlier, and you said a phrase that was so accurate that I wanted to say something.
Why didn't you?
Well, because I think it's good to map what somebody thinks first. But now I'll go back to it and say, you said they're obsessed with vagina. Both of those words are accurate. Literally obsessed.
Why?
And well, evolution has guaranteed it, right? So I didn't do anything to want that. I didn't even grow up with pornography. So, I mean, it was there, but it was really hard to get a hold of. So until I was probably 25, I maybe saw 10 different women.
But it didn't hijack your young, because your prefrontal cortex would have been developed by then.
No.
So
well, by the time
you got it, so it wasn't hijacked.
Mid-20s for sure. But pornography did completely derail me when I was a kid. I actually went on a trip when I was like 18. So I went on it back to back. So one year I was either 16 or 17, can't remember exactly, and then 18. And when I went and wasn't old enough to buy a Playboy magazine, I actually think it was Penthouse, but I wasn't old enough to buy it. I went and hung out with everybody and had like a little summer romance, no sex or anything, but it was just because I had no game in high school. But anyway, it was unbelievable. It's one of the strongest, most interesting memories of my childhood.
Really? Most men can report when they first saw pornography because it has such an impact on their brain.
Well, no. The year without pornography becomes one of the most important memories of my childhood. Then the next year when I could buy a pornography magazine, I just spent the whole time in the hotel reading all the smutty articles. And so I ended up being kind of ashamed of that trip because I was like, wait, last year when I didn't have this, I had such a ball because I engaged with everybody. And now that I'm in the grips of this thing that has grabbed a hold of my brain, I did something that I look back on and go, it wasn't as profound.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, the amplitude of the being engrossed in the sex is very, very high amplitude, but it was devoid of meaning. So thankfully, I had that sort of idea reinforced early on that connections with people are far more
meaningful,
like emotionally satisfying.
Yeah.
And so that was good, and that planted something in my head. But it also makes me deeply concerned for people that just have unfettered access to pornography all the time, every day.
Yeah.
And the way that it will cause you to, when you don't have a prefrontal cortex, just be obsessed with that to the exclusion of the other things. And when you're young, if you don't have these profound experiences, you don't have anything to compare to, because you never go out and don't have a phone and don't have access to porn. And
But the thing is, it's just one thing that men don't realize is how much it is the miseducation of sex. It's not actually teaching men how to make love. It teaches them how to make hate. They literally just learn. Tune in and get exclusive content. Not only that, but you can also message me anytime and receive a response within 20 pathic way of making love. It's not actually what women find attractive. And the thing is, they think they're learning all these skills and moves, but if you speak to women, they are far more satisfied with men who have not watched porn or been in long-term relationships compared to men who do short-term one-night stands. Some men will be like, oh, I slept with 100 girls this year. If you've slept with so many so many women, and you've got loads of one-night stands behind your belts, that is an indicator you are not good at sex. The man that actually has more long-term relationships is far better, and there's been so much research to support this, because you don't have any repeat customers if you're just doing one-night stands. So you don't learn anything about women, and you don't learn what pleases them, what doesn't please them. Whereas men that have been in long-term relationships, fewer women, but have been there with them longer, they learn how to read a woman's body. Whereas porn addicts learn how to just reenact moves, and there's a complete difference in them. And women are looking for men who read her body rather than somebody who just reads a script that they saw on Pornhub.
Okay, I'm going to take you into nuanced waters. Everything you said makes total sense for maybe the average person, somebody that doesn't have access to self-awareness, whatever. Going back to this idea of obsessed with vagina, experiencing more women for sure made me better at sex, even though some of them were very brief encounters, no repeat customers, as you said. Because if one of them is honest with you about what they like, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, whoa, like I never would have thought of that. That's really interesting.
So little bits of feedback.
Yeah.
But then doesn't that then also suggest then women who've had more experience are going to be better at sex?
Almost certainly.
Yeah, and therefore, how do men fall in love? Through sex. So they're going to end up falling in love with women who are more promiscuous.
Something breaks for me with my personality on that train. So again, you're probably speaking to averages.
And I'm speaking to younger, I think, generation that grew up on like Instagram, and that is their preferences, and haven't experienced loyalty in relationships. But if we are suggesting that more experience leads to better sex, then men always fall in love with the woman that gives them the best sex. They're going to fall in love with the more promiscuous woman overall in the real world. That's who they're going to be most attached to. And therefore, what are we rewarding? And then we're complaining that women are so liberal and women are no longer mothers, and women, it's because you're falling in love with the women that know how to handle you sexually best, rather than the women that know how to actually give you a good life best.
Yeah, it's interesting though. If somebody can't figure that out, I worry a lot about them. So this is an inverted U. So everything, when you talk about this, it's like, look, I am scared for people that I know and love.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of young guys on the staff, and I don't know if they have my skill set and would be able to navigate
We
that.
take it for granted because we would think it's common sense, but it's not common sense, unfortunately. It's really not common sense. And you'll know it's not common sense by how much of a reaction I get when I say it. It's so common sense to us that you would think people would just scroll past my thing and not even think twice about it. But the fact that people will literally foam at the mouth when I say it means that it's unfortunately not common sense. Isn't it bizarre that it's not common sense?
Nothing surprises me anymore.
Nothing surprises us, yeah.
So Well, if it's not common sense, let's give it to people. So this is going to be an inverted U in my estimation from sexual experience standpoint. 0 is problematic, and somewhere, I mean, if I'm going to put numbers on it, somewhere probably north of 25. I'm talking for guys.
That's a lot, no?
It starts to be 25.
Yeah,
That is a lot.
Is it a lot or not a lot in this day?
In this day and age, I
It's
would
probably
assume
not.
it's not.
Yeah, it's probably not. Yeah.
But that to me is you're for sure going to be on the side of like, okay, now we are.
Women.
You probably knew women somewhere around 7, 8, 9, 10 in there. Like you've had enough variety. But anyway, if somebody got to 25, going back to this idea of obsession with vagina, nature squeezes your brain in a way you can't imagine when you're having sex with a novel female. It's really unbelievable. Now, I love that I can talk to my wife about this because I'm like, you just don't understand. Like there are few things that are as gripping as that.
And I can't speak for all women, but from a female perspective, there's nothing more, for me, there would be nothing more traumatizing than having to sleep with somebody new.
Yeah.
Isn't that so weird?
It is because I'm obsessed with evolutionary biology, it is not weird in the slightest.
Yeah.
Everything about evolution predicts that would be true. So in a world where you could die having kids and I could impregnate somebody in 4 minutes, never see them again, and now I have a child that's out there somewhere, our strategies are just so
Totally
different.
opposite.
So you have to develop a detective agency for a brain.
Yeah.
Anybody that hasn't read it, I highly encourage you read the book A Billion Wicked Thoughts.
A Billion Wicked Thoughts.
And they talk about this idea of the detective agency. So a woman has a detective agency. Is this guy going to be good? Are they going to have access to resources? Are my kids going to be okay?
Yeah.
All that stuff. Can I trust him?
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. A guy is just like, am I going to be able to get her pregnant?
Am I climaxing?
Yeah. So it's very, very different strategies. Now, guys are more likely to have a child that survives if they also invest, at least for a short period of time.
Yeah.
So we are, by way of species, we are very much in the middle. So, which you can tell by the size of testicles. I don't know if the audience cares about this, but so humans have testicle size that puts them right in the middle. If we were very monogamous, we would have tiny testicles because we would not.
What animals have that?
There's certain gorillas that have tiny testicles, because they basically hoard all the females, so they don't have to. There's no sperm competition. Whereas you get some animals where they have gigantic testicles because they're just everybody's having sex with everybody, and so it's tons of sperm competition. Humans are somewhere in the middle. So. Anyway, going back to this idea of the inverted U, a little bit of, no experience is bad. As you get a reasonable amount, it's good.
I would agree with you. I would probably, look, morally I would disagree, but I guess in terms of empirical and stuff, I can agree, I can understand why that. And I would say the same applies for women. As the body count increases, they learn something about male bodies from each man, a different preference, and therefore she comes like with a menu full of treats for a man, which is totally fine, but then just don't claim you want a good woman. Claim you want an experienced woman.
Well, we have to define what we mean by good woman.
Because here's the thing, I work with men and women. Yeah, I work primarily with men, but I have, a lot of female clients. And the only women that are struggling to find a partner are ones that are actually wife material. You speak to a woman who has no intention of settling down, who is very good at, performing sexual acts and stuff. She has no problem meeting men. She's constantly surrounded by men. So it's just the message that men are giving online is that they want good women and stuff, but it's not in line with their behavior. And I just wish there was more honesty about what you truly want out of a woman. And once you give women that honesty, they know. Because I know men who will say, my wife, she just stopped having sex with me years and years ago. And that's the primary thing. And I was like, but have you mentioned this to her? Have you said this to her? I said it once or twice, joking. They're like scared to voice it. They're scared. So that lack of honesty about how important sex is, so many women will say, oh, he never really spoke about it. I didn't even know that he was so deprived. He seemed fine about it. They don't talk about their true needs. And I get it sounds predatory, but it's better to give women that information than to hide it and mask it and tell women, no, we don't want promiscuous, we don't want this. But then they go through life thinking that's what you truly want, but that's not what you're rewarding at all. So it's giving women a really misinformation about how to actually attract a partner.
What do you think women believe they need to do to attract a partner?
Women believe that in order to get a good man, you have to be quite, quite reserved sexually. They also believe that you have to, be quite submissive and tolerant, and you have to be quite very agreeable. That's what the message women are getting that you have to do to attract a woman. What's really getting rewarded is hypersexual, incredibly sexy rather than beautiful, that gets rewarded, and somewhat confrontational. They reward women that give them some pushback. The woman that's actually incredibly nice and agreeable, they are likely to keep her in their life, and maybe they'll have their kids with her and stuff, but they don't seem to be engulfed by her. They're almost indifferent to her. They might use her for procreation, but they're not actually attached to her. The women that when you ask a man which woman had the biggest chokehold over you, it would always be one that was sexually active and somewhat abusive. And I don't know why that is.
This is very interesting. Okay, we're gonna have to dive into this because this one feels to me like a bias given your job.
It is a bias given my job, and also the reason I would say that, I have to preface that, is that applies to low self-esteem men. High self-esteem men do not enjoy any form of kind of pushback and aggression and that they just don't like that crazy toxic cycle at all. Low self-esteem men see toxicity as a signal that she's attached to him rather than a signal that her mental health is unstable. They see her overreacting to you liking a picture, or her overreacting to you to go, see your ex-wife with the kids, her overreactions as, oh, she must really love me, rather than a reaction to show that she is unstable and she's found a man that tolerates instability.
Yeah, I learned from Sadia Khan that women don't want a man